Good evening. It's Tuesday, July 14th, 8:11 p.m. I had already done the video, but my phone shut off and I lost all the data. Gotta when I was just about to finish, so gotta start over again. We have a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of news, so buckle in. It's gonna get comfy. So for today's tally, most cases was America at 65,000. Second, Brazil 43,000. Third, India 29,000. Fourth, Russia 6,000. In terms of deaths, top death was Brazil at 1,341. The USA 935. India 588, and Mexico 485. Now let's look at the USA state by state. Most new cases was Texas with 11,000, California with 9,500, Florida with 9,000, Arizona with 4,000. That's a disturbing surge. In terms of deaths, California was number one with 139 deaths, Florida 132 deaths, which is a record for Florida, as far as I know. Texas 131 deaths, Arizona 92 deaths. So deaths are climbing in the USA. They're getting worse. Veterans Affairs plus 500, plus 21 dead. Puerto Rico seeing some bad numbers. The military didn't report. That's strange. That's really strange. Federal prisons plus 306. Now with the latest news, and there's a lot to talk about today. A lot. I can't believe how much news popped up today. Dispute over wearing SARS-2 mask SARS-2 mask inside Michigan convenience store leads to stabbing and fatal shooting. Over a mask? Really? Man dies from cardiac arrest. Oh, from cardiac respiratory arrest, waiting in line for the SARS-2 test in Utah. So they took this guy to go take a test. When they finally got to the test, he was dead. Los Angeles. Employees at Silver Lake Whole Foods store contract SARS-2. In May, an employee from a Whole Foods store in Pasadena died from contracting SARS-2. At least 2 more employees at the same store also contracted the disease. So grocery stores are hotspots because people go in mass and it gets worse during panic buying. And right now people are panic buying again because of the lockdown being brought back to a lot of states and so on and so on and so on. A blogger in Tunisia has been sentenced to 6 months in prison after sharing a satirical post about SARS-2 written in the form of a verse from the Quran. California Health Secretary. Contact tracing not built for this much spread. So contact tracing is falling apart nationwide. There's too much of a surge, not enough contact tracers to keep it together. Tiger Woods put safety first during SARS-2 and avoids tournaments. Tennessee, mask-wearing mandate disrupted and postponed after anti-mask protesters assembled inside. They chanted, "My body, my choice." The Constitution says we have the right to assemble. It doesn't say we have the right to assemble 6 feet apart. The fool, the delusion, the idiocy behind these statements. Another called board members fascists. A man approached board members yelling, but was quickly stopped by a sheriff's deputy who escorted him away. He said, "We want to know who to vote out." So it's bad enough that people don't want to vote, that those that do vote are people like this. Russia lifts lockdown restrictions, required mask wearing amid pandemic. Move welcomed by residents who rushed out to enjoy the streets and parks. Critics have cast doubt on Russia's low official mortality rate and accused authorities of underreporting to play down the scale of the virus. America. The federal government may not have the capacity to supply medical professionals with personal protective equipment amid the latest surge in SARS-2 cases, according to internal administration documents. So here's America, supposedly a so-called first world country, struggling for PPE. This comes as Trump and senior administration officials pressured state and local governments to reopen and prepare to open schools in the fall, despite rising fatalities, hospitalizations, and cases in major metropolitan areas and small towns across the country. Philadelphia cancels all large events until 2021. Fans won't be allowed at Eagles games. New Jersey adds more states to travel advisory, removes Delaware. Utah's housing shortage is getting worse because of the SARS-2 pandemic. If SARS-2 cases continue upward and death rates start to rise, problems with housing could spread to homeowners, as they did during the Great Recession, which led to thousands of foreclosures. That's how bad it's getting, that they're starting to refer to the Great Recession. Study. Baby was infected with SARS-2 in womb. Strongly suggests that SARS-2 can be transmitted in utero. A baby born in a Paris hospital in March to a mother with SARS-2 tested positive and developed symptoms of inflammation in his brain. Dr. DeLuca said the virus appears to have been transmitted through the placenta of the 23-year-old mother. So there are studies that show that the virus has been found in the placenta, which makes it pretty obvious that all those pregnant women that are infected can pass it on to the kids. However, this still requires more study and more examples, but very alarming nonetheless. Virginia Republican congressman tests positive for SARS-2. 3 passengers aboard a recent Delta Airlines flight from Atlanta to upstate New York have tested positive for SARS-2. They were asymptomatic spreaders during the flight. Passengers on the flight are advised to call their home county health department, officials said. Young, upwardly mobile New Yorkers who flooded the city's restaurants and bars last month, contrary to protesters, are responsible for the spike in SARS-2 cases among 20 to 29-year-olds, a city health official insisted Tuesday. You'd rather get a SARS-2 vaccine through your nose. If you watch Contagion, the vaccine was administered through the nose. Watch it if you haven't. Get a fake Hulu account and watch it. When protecting people against pathogens that invade the airway, like SARS-2, an intramuscular shot isn't necessarily the best strategy, some experts say. Some say it makes sense to develop vaccines for the airway as well as injections. Knowing how potent mucosal responses can be against a viral pathogen, it would be ideal to be thinking about mucosal vaccines, said Iwasaki, an immunologist at Yale University. So what they're saying is that because of the way the immune system responds in near the nasal area, it might be better to make a vaccine that goes into the nose rather than be shot into an arm. Doctor, SARS-2 can be airborne and infectious for 16 hours. He warns those having get-togethers and going to bars and indoor places. So that just screams lab agent. This virus is so infectious that the public is still not aware of how bad it really is. And there's still a lot of questions. Pennsylvania, 16 Pittsburgh employees test positive for SARS-2. 2 were environmental service waste collection employees. 7 were police department employees. 5 were fire bureau employees. And 2 were emergency medical service employees. 23-year-old woman has been fighting SARS-2 for a month. Warns others to not be like her. I was just naive and didn't think I would get it. She was out at bars and breweries when they reopened. The body pain I experienced and the shooting pains in the ribs in my back, it was honestly terrible. My stomach hurt. I was throwing up. I had a pretty high fever. She took precautions, but says people eventually just got over it. I'm young and I'm healthy and I got it and I suffered. Well, you got what you deserved, honestly. 2 only San Quentin workers infected. 10 inmates dead as SARS-2 devastates California prison. Louisiana Attorney General has SARS-2 in quarantines. Many drivers in California who are 70 years or older will get an automatic 1-year extension on their driver's license in light of the SARS-2 pandemic, DMV announces. Large bird pecks Bolsonaro at his palace during SARS-2 quarantine. Now, somebody in the article said that they see the bird as representing how the people feel. So as if some divine force was behind him getting pecked by that bird for the bastard that he's been and allowing Brazilians to drop like flies because of his downplaying of the virus. Ecuador, oil spill in Amazon region in the middle of the SARS-2 pandemic puts indigenous lives at risk. Amazonian peoples who suddenly found that the water, fish, game, and crops that would allow them to self-isolate in the forest are contaminated by oil. It could have been preventable. Oil spills could have been preventable, but it's all about making that money. SARS-2 cases soar by more than 1 million over 5 days. Yeah, it's accelerating really fast right now. really fast right now. California, Orange County is among many regions facing shortages of two key components to slowing the virus spread: testing and contact tracing, with some residents having to wait more than a week to get tested and results often taking several more days to come in. As of Friday, Orange County had fewer than 185 contact tracers, officials said, with not enough resources to contact everyone who tests positive. On testing, officials said the wait at some test sites is more than a week, with some labs having backlogs of more than a week as well in processing tests. Study: Dutch scientists found that the blood from SARS-2 patients struggling for their life on ventilators was highly inflammatory. They observed during a series of experiments that it could trigger an overreaction of the immune system, destroy crucial barriers in tissues, and cause water and blood to spill over in the lungs. Antibodies generated by the immune system to neutralize the SARS-2 could cause severe harm or even kill the patient. This could change the fight with the pandemic, says the study. One thing is certain: we cannot put all our bets on antibodies. That's a very scary study. It is currently awaiting peer review. A study conducted by researchers at the biggest U.S. military bioweapons laboratory has said that SARS-2 can live on animal skin for 4 days. After a Tennessee church became a super spreading hotspot, its pastor says he wishes he should have made attendees wear masks. As I said before, and many times before, the blood of Jesus is not going to protect you, and they are now learning the hard way. Texas, as SARS-2 spreads through Seagoville prison, inmates and family fear a waiting game to get sick. California, LA County reports record single-day numbers of SARS-2 cases, hospitalizations. Tests have confirmed 336,508 cases statewide, with 6,745 people currently hospitalized, double from a month ago and the most since the pandemic began. Utah nursing homes keep having SARS-2 outbreaks. Industry groups warn it will get worse. One family brought their mother from New York to protect her, and now we're screwed, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to save her. Smith's mother has recently tested positive for SARS-2. It's a bleak story. Very bleak. Philadelphia State Senator Anthony H. Williams has tested positive for SARS-2, becoming the second Pennsylvania legislator to contract SARS-2. Bishop Larry Trotter, senior pastor in Chicago, recently tested positive for SARS-2. He believes he may have gotten it from a relative visiting from Florida who was recently tested positive. Should have known better than that. At least 26 flights have arrived in Canada with SARS-2 cases in the last 2 weeks. My patient caught SARS-2 twice. So long to herd immunity hopes? Emerging cases of SARS-2 reinfection suggest herd immunity could be wishful thinking. Yeah, herd immunity is a fantasy. It is a myth at the moment. Florida Examiner has warned that individuals who contract SARS-2 and are asymptomatic still appear to have lung damage. My gosh, I really don't know how to say it without being gruesome. It just destroys the lungs, Dr. Doug Martin says. Doug Martin cited his own experience doing autopsies in a study published earlier this month by Scripps Research. Analysis suggested that up to 45% of those infected with SARS-2 were asymptomatic while also appearing to suffer lung damage. The dead's lungs don't look and feel like lungs anymore. Daniel Oren, a scientist involved with the Scripps Research analysis, told KSWB-TV that the lung issues were observed in the majority of asymptomatic individuals who said they felt fine. As you can see, the situation is getting worse, and worse. As the WHO said earlier, who are also not very dependable. But it is getting worse, and worse. So thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.